Good evening. Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is Derek Piper and Jeremy Werner live at State Farm Center, live on our YouTube channel. Hey, to everybody out there on the YouTube channel. And we're here to discuss Luke Altmaier Day, right? He's coming back. It would have been great news if that was also the kind of appetizer to what would have been a huge Illinois victory, a historic Illinois victory, if they're able to close out Tennessee. But they weren't. Tennessee outscores Illinois 7-2 in the final 2.5 minutes. And Jordan Gainey hits a game-winning layup, hit the game-tying three as well, but hits the game-winning layup with time expires to beat Illinois 66-64 in this one, Derek. And for a second time in 3 games, this just felt like Illinois let one slip away, let a quad one victory slip away, and most importantly, a grand opportunity against number one. You don't get these very often. And Illinois gave themselves a chance to win, but they're just not able to close it out. So we'll break down everything, Derek, but what are your initial thoughts from this one?
Yeah, that one stung. And it was a special day in terms of the environment here at State Farm Center to have the Crush lined up like 100 deep since 7 a.m. and to have number one in your building, and they don't play all that well. And you can get into – they did do some good things in terms of challenging – Sparris Jakachonis, and that's not surprising when Jemai Mashak is as good of a perimeter defender as he is, and Kai Ziegler is really quick and athletic. So them mucking up the game is kind of par for the course with Tennessee, and you expect some of that. But for Chaz Lanier to only score 2 points in the second half and foul out with 4 minutes to go, and Ziegler's really a non-factor in the second half offensively, it was really there for Illinois to close this thing out and can win against number one in the country, not playing your best game. And it is late game stuff. It's a number of things bundled into those final minutes that need to be better. I know Kylan harped on communication, and that really was lacking on that coast-to-coast drive. Brad says he should have called timeout, which in hindsight, that would have been a good idea. I thought they got bailed out, even just getting KJ to the free throw line. Go back and watch it. And Ziegler turns his back to the play, which allows KJ kind of just to, in a really discombobulated possession, just run into him and draw a foul, where if he turns around is in good position, then that's probably a different brutal way to lose a basketball game. So things for them to learn on. Still early in the season. You play these games because they don't really hurt you if you lose them, and also there's so much to gain. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee, I don't know what to chalk it up to. Like, they weren't the better team necessarily on this game.
Yeah.
They were tougher. I mean, I guess they were a little bit better on the glass, and Gainey made plays when Illinois side didn't in the clutch. That was really the difference. Gainey, 18 points in the second half. He was tremendous and made obviously the one that mattered the most too.
Yeah, I just thought they were the more poised team when it came down to crunch time. Illinois had a 3-point lead. It was just Illinois had a chance to pull away, and I think it was Gainey that hit that runner, right? And like it just felt like, okay, now we're going to have a game. Felt like Illinois wasn't going to blow the roof off this place because it was ready. I mean, from the tip, this crowd was ready. And unfortunately, we got a football game in the first half and just foul after foul, and there was no rhythm. It was just free throws. And you kind of got to reset. It was only a 1-point lead for Tennessee, so you at least got to reset to where the second half where it felt a little bit more open. But these teams just couldn't shoot. And you give credit to the defenses. And the one thing I like about this game, Derek, is don't look now, but Illinois' defense is pretty good. I guess this is a team that is now 11th in the Ken Palm defense. You hold Tennessee to 66 points, which I believe is their season low. You held them to 32.4%, which is their season low. They missed some open shots, but you had something to do with that. And you found a way to compete against Tennessee and have a chance to win. But this isn't a program that's built on these kind of, moral victories anymore. Like, this is a program that is capable of beating Tennessee, because I don't know if that's the number one team in the country. They happen to be it right now, but it's a really good team. It's a Final Four contender. But it looked like, kind of like Northwestern, is a team that's been there, done that before in terms of just being physical, being old, knowing what it takes to win at the end of games. And my bigger concern, obviously, you don't like that last play happening. And, yeah, Brad should have called timeout, should have been better communication. My problem is with this offense at the end of games. Final 3 minutes against Northwestern, they scored one free throw. They scored 1 point over the final 3 minutes, Derek, when they had a 5-point lead. Today, they scored 2 points, have no field goals over the last 454. They missed 2 free throws with Kylan Boswell and and Yakashonis. It's hard for this team to kind of get easy points at times. We'll get into the shooting of this team, which has really struggled here recently, but just in those closing minutes, you're really depending on Kasper Yakashonis to either hit a good shot, a tough shot, or get to the free throw line, because there's not really another guy you can get the ball to and go, here, go get a bucket, go get us points, because Tomislav Visic is not a low post scorer, right? It's not like you can go to Kofi and get a low post scorer. And, Boswell at times can get to the free throw line. Trey White did against Wisconsin, but that wasn't there tonight.
No, it definitely wasn't. And all of those are very valid points. Will Riley's not that guy yet. I know we'll talk about him. His struggles continue as a shooter, and he's trying to do a lot off the dribble, but sometimes is making that tougher on himself to make shots. There was a good amount. I didn't realize maybe how much the ball was going to be in his hands tonight. It did feel like for a long time there it was KJ and Will, and Will did get to the free throw line a little bit, but no doubt that there's so much on KJ's plate to facilitate and create advantages and make breakdowns happen that then open up other guys. And when you're facing one of the best defenses in the country, definitely I would say the best perimeter defense, when you got a tandem of Ziegler and Meshack being able to hound ball handlers, it makes it tough. And that's not to say that, it excuses all of 7 of KJ's turnovers, and he turns it over twice in the final 2.5 minutes. Those things are costly for sure, and misses one of the free throws that could have given you a lead. Now, obviously, you get up the coast-to-coast drive anyway, you lose regardless, but it does change some circumstances. But things do get tough for this offense. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a lack of poise, like you said. It really just kind of challenges who they want to be, and whether that needs to be more set plays, or that needs to be some different actions when KJ gets bottled up and, defenses are keen on him. Those are some good things that you got to wonder about. Kylan isn't maybe the most natural of that. Give him the ball and allow him to set the table. You saw him stumbling on that last possession before KJ gets fouled. But no doubt, that Northwestern was shot selection, lack of poise, situational awareness, and then this
I'm thinking of that last. Ziegler misses a free throw, right? And you get the ball, and Will Riley just kind of threw it up to Humrickhouse.
Yeah.
Like, why are you getting the ball to Humrickhouse?
Yeah.
On the fast break, and then Kylan stumbles, and it just felt like, boy, the moment was big for that team, and you got to have the ball at Kasper Yakashonis' hands. Like, at least he tried to draw some fouls. Like, he tried to get on the up and swipe, and they didn't call it, which Brad didn't seem that happy about. But yeah, they just, and then the out of bounds play, Derek, the sideline out of bounds play where it looked like a lazy pass by KJ, but also Tomislav Visic did not come to the ball. And Igor Milicic, who had a terrible game for outside of rebounding, he was a great rebounder, but was 1 for 10, I believe, at that point. Swipes the ball, dunk, and that changed the game, because you could have had a chance to take the lead there and have the lead for the final minute. And just those plays, like Tennessee made them, and Illinois just kind of fumbled them away.
Yeah, and you could hear in the post game by Rick Barnes just kind of the shock that they won that. Like, to have Lanier foul out with 3.5 to go and have Ziegler end up going out, and then KJ steps to the line with a chance to tie the game and then win it. Just you could tell that he was surprised that they came out of here with a win. Given the environment, given his team struggled so mightily shooting the ball, and Illinois seemed like some moments in that second half, like even before Lanier was out, they had it up to 6, and then Gainey makes a couple of big shots. So it just felt like one that Illinois should have been able to survive and pull out. I know that Brad said that he doesn't like calling timeouts offensively, but I was going to question and wonder if KJ doesn't get that call on the drive to the lane and the ball squirts away, or he throws up a tough shot and that's the way they lose too. Like, that's another thing where that thing was pretty obviously going sideways. Should you have called that timeout and reset? Yeah. It did work out ultimately, but the game was decided on that coast to coast drive. But yeah, offensively they gotta find some things and rep some things. And the out of bounds stuff. We saw it. It didn't cost you against Wisconsin, but there was some late, spread the sideline, and you just wonder about some of the plays they're running to get guys open. And I do think, even though Brad pushed back on it, I didn't want to mention this. I asked him, is it youth? Is it a new team playing together in these moments for the first time, and he didn't want any of that. He said it's on me. It's repping this stuff in practice and me getting their communication better, which I appreciate him taking onus for that. I do think some of it is youth because they look like it late in games, but they got to figure it out because you're far enough into the season and getting there to where you got to be able to close it out because a lot of close games happen in rivalry games like Braggin Rights or Big Ten plays you're about to be in the heart of, and it doesn't get easier.
Yeah, and it just felt like a huge missed opportunity, Derek. Like, obviously Northwestern was on the road. There were 70% of Illini fans there, so it feels weird to say on the road, but to have that opportunity to close it out, like that's going to cost you. 2 of these last, 3 games are going to cost you seeding when it comes to NCAA tournament. So it is costly. You had a chance to be in this game, but let's talk about this offense, Derek, because 4 of 23 from 3 tonight. They were able to get the free throw line and made their free throws until the final couple minutes, 30-36, but 29% from the field. Tennessee's defense is awesome. They are great. Akpara barely played today because he got in foul trouble and just wasn't a good matchup for him with Ivasic. But this is a couple games now for all these guys where we know Ben Hummerkaus is in a really struggle of shooting. He was 2 of 5 tonight, 1 for 4 from 3. Big putback dunk, had the 3 to start the game. So he at least had a couple good moments today. But Ivasic, 4 points, 1 of 5 from the field, really struggling around the rim to finish. But Will Riley is in a slump. Like, we've talked about Hummerkaus, but Will Riley over the last 3 games is 1 of 17 from 3. I think that's what we figured out there, Derek. And Ivasic is 10 of 28 from the field over the last 3 games since that Arkansas great performance. And we know Hummerkaus is in one right now. So when 3 of what should be your 5 best scorers are in those kind of slumps, what do we make of it, Derek?
It's a killer, yeah, for sure. I think some of it is the degree of difficulty with Will. The fact that he is maybe overcomplicating and instead of just focusing on catch and let it go. Not to say that those are always there, and they are sending a lot of attention to him and running him off the line, knowing he's a very talented shot maker. I mean, that's going to be the book on him is you can't give this guy open looks. So maybe he feels like the space isn't there to where he has to create, but it seems in watching it, I'll be interested to watch it back, but that he decks it and tries to shake, and all of a sudden things get going in a hurry for him. And he's
the difference between him and KJ's got kind of a pace to him. Will seems more frenetic. Obviously, Casper's is stronger, and this is kind of you're seeing Will against Northwestern, Tennessee, even Wisconsin. There's a different strength element, and Brad, answering your question, Derek, asked him about what he needs to do. It's like, well, he scored a lot of points against some weak opponents, right? Like maybe it has a false sense for him of what it is going to be, but also now he's at the top of scouting reports. But he's a year away strength-wise. Now, he could be a first-round draft pick regardless because of his potential, because he could be a value for a playoff team that can stash him for a while and develop him. But I always thought like he was more potentially the guy who could stay for another year because he's got to add that strength. I think we're seeing that. But the difference with him and Casper's is Casper's has his feet set. Like Will is kind of always off balance. Now he draws fouls on those threes because he's kicking out like Reggie Miller, but he just doesn't have his feet set like Casper. So always has his feet under him, squared to shoot. You see Will with like his feet scissored. You see him like with off one foot at times. That's hard to hit shots at this level.
It is, yeah. I know that in previous competition, UIBL, high school, he's shown that he doesn't need to be fully aligned at all times, and high degree of difficulty shot maker is in his DNA. But when you're facing a really good defenses and things get that much harder at this level, it's hard to have the consistency when that's the case. So it is a matter of, and look, it's a freshman who's 18 years old and 10 games into the year, and you just played a really, really good defense. So some of these shot making struggles aren't surprising, and I'm not worried long term, but maybe it is something that you try to run some stuff to get him off a screen or whatever it might be, to just give him a clear cut. All right, we're going to run this. We want you to just catch and fire, have the feet set, and those type of things. So, but it goes back to what you said originally. I think it's the case for Will. I think it's the case for Ben, is so much is on KJ to create that attention and that breakdown. And some of the shots that Ben's missed have just been good looks that he hasn't put down. Other times here recently, I feel like he's pressing to where he's taking some shots that are contested, and he's still putting them up. But yeah, and then I know we can get in the conversation of rebounding. 1 rebound in 30 minutes. It was a really good rebound. It was a putback slam in a huge spot.
It's not good enough. It's my biggest issue with Ben Humrickhouse right now. I know he's not a great defender. And he's in a shooting slump, obviously, but 1 rebound in how many minutes? Was it 30? 30 tonight. It's unacceptable. That just can't happen. And Tennessee, you're really fortunate Tennessee did not take advantage of their offensive rebounds. They had 17 offensive rebounds, only had 8 second chance points. Now, Illinois had 12 offensive rebounds. I mean, there's a lot of missed shots in this game, but and they had 8 points. So they were really fortunate Tennessee did not take advantage of those because they kept getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to see Milicic end up with 14 rebounds, 13, 14, whatever it ultimately was. I mean,
I was impressed by his toughness, by the way. He didn't shoot it well at all today, but he was tough, man.
He was. Yeah, and I think that Tommy being such a dud offensively was a killer. And I thought that maybe, Tennessee's profile defensively has been teams take a lot of threes against them. I think part of it is because you can't get in the lane to save your life. Not to say that all those threes are good looks, but with Okpara playing, he's a mobile big man, but I thought maybe you could slip Tommy out for some pick and pop threes or get him inside on some dump offs and allow him to maybe one dribble or just turn and use that touch around the rim. And early in the season, when you're facing some of those bye game opponents, which obviously not saying that's been all of his production because he was really good, double-double against Alabama, double-double against Arkansas, but some of the touch around the rim hasn't been there of late, and I think he's gotten pushed around a little bit physically.
For sure.
And that's kind of been some of his – he's leaning back and off balance on some of those turn and jump hooks. And
he's avoiding contact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's last 4 games, I just looked it up, Derek. Yeah, even Arkansas, 8 for 21 from 2.
Yeah.
Right? Like Arkansas, he was 6 of 9 from 3. So that really was where all the scoring came from. He's a pick and pop big. It's not really a guy who scores a lot in the paint. That's something they need. And it's why Kylan, Will, and Trey got 10 points tonight. Got some early, got to the free throw line a little bit, but it's just those guys there's a lot of pressure on them because there's so much offensive load on Kasparis right now. And I thought he was the best player on the court until the final couple minutes when Jordan Gainey took over. So I get it, 7 turnovers, but his usage, the pressure on him is so enormous. And he just made some huge shots again tonight. Just didn't execute this one down the stretch.
2 and 1 threes were hugely clutch and big time shots. And he's getting chased by Meshack all
14
game long.
Free throw attempts, man.
That too. Yeah.
Got all huge. Those guys in foul trouble, right? I forgot. I haven't seen how many fouls he drew. I'll look that up now, but it was insane.
And it could have been a little bit more. I think he could have had a few more ultimately. And good on him for finding his way to the line. It's a savvy play to force a ref to make a call at the very end where, Ziegler's turned his back to the play. He's down in guarding position, and you kind of just run into him, and you get to the free throw line. Now, obviously, you want to make both free throws and have a lead to where there's even more pressure. It was a really house money drive for Gainey because if they miss, they're going to overtime, and if you make it, obviously, you win the game. So that's something mixed in with some of those, again, late game turnovers. But, yeah, I mean, he made some really good plays. He flashed why he's the prospect that he is. At times you see that he's an 18-year-old that has a lot on his plate. But I do think that defensively, again, I want to go back and watch it. But one of the big threes by Gainey in the final minutes, I think he left him or got caught up and not covering it. And he's not without fault, but he's pretty good for a young player with so much that you need from him, especially right now.
Yeah, Kasparis drew 9 fouls. Kudos to Boswell. He drew 7 fouls as well. Just wasn't as efficient. I mean, Illinois, I believe, on layups was 8 of 17 today. This guy gets stronger, man. They got to get stronger. They're not finishing around the hoop, but getting to the free throw line was pretty huge for this team. Yeah, the other thing I want to keep bringing up, I know Will had 10 points. This isn't a very deep team right now, right? Like, Dre Gibbs-Allhorn, 3 fouls in a couple minutes on the court tonight. 6 minutes didn't play in the second half. Brett Johnson probably should play a little bit more. 11 minutes in the first half. Thought he gave great defense. Obviously had to play more because Ivisic was out. Only 1 minute in the final. Maybe. I just think Ivisic needs a little more rest at times. Like he just looks gassed sometimes late in these games. And obviously, I know people would like to see him over Ben at times, but Jake Davis, I mean, you know what you're getting in him. You're just trying to get some minutes there. Then Kerry Booth played a little bit, but this is not a very deep team right now, Derek.
Definitely not. No, and Merez is the one guy that you can really feel confident in wanting to get more minutes out of. I think that DGL, I didn't watch him tonight and said, boy, you need more of him in this game. Ultimately, I understand he plays hard, but he fouls way too much, and that's something that he's got to be able to clean up on. And the offense
had the turnover and went and chased it down, and that was great to make up for it. And he did force Lanier into a turnover, but the 3 fouls and the turnover, it's just like, not getting any points out of him either.
No, the offensive punch really isn't there outside. I know he came in and made a shot or two against Arkansas, but that's not been his calling card in some of these big games up to this point. And I think that Jake Davis, you're like you said, I think it's probably the best way to put it. You're trying to steal some minutes. You understand that he can make a shot if he's open. If you try to,
I thought he passed one up tonight. I was like, Jake, shoot it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him shoot because like they need somebody who can make a bucket off the bench.
I worried about him just knowing how athletic Tennessee is. I'm like, man, if Jake goes out there, it could be tough for him at times. And like he didn't look so overly matched. And Kerry's just still, and he recently has had barely any chance to show anything, but that is telling of some of his struggles and where the staff evaluated him in early game action practice. Just a guy that needs to get stronger, needs to have the game slow down and settle in. Admittedly, it is kind of surprising. I don't know. Notre Dame was pretty bad last year, but he hasn't looked maybe as seasoned as somebody that played 20, 22 minutes a game at Notre Dame last year to this point. It'd be nice to have him in the mix, especially if you wanted to have Ben on the bench for a little bit when he's struggling or whatnot, but you're kind of not in that position. And it did just feel like a shallow roster, almost to where, like, not that long ago we're saying Trey White, what do you get out of him tonight? Kind of almost needed more in spots. And there's just a lot. KJ, Kylan, and when you're not getting Will and Tommy, especially.
Yeah. All right. I do want to say the one positive outside of Kasparis and the moments he has is your defense is playing pretty well, Derek. I'll reiterate, number 11 right now, or number 10 right now in the country now in KenPom. And you are forcing teams into a lot of tough twos, contested threes. Now, Tennessee missed some. Milicic missed more than he usually does. He's usually a better shooter than that. But I know it's not all Boswell, but Boswell forcing Lanier into 5 of 17, right, for 17 points. Trey White was on him at times. I know Kasparis was on him at times, but Boswell was dogging him for most of the night. Milicic 2 of 13. Obviously, Gainey goes off at the end of the game, but they're starting to make people really work for it defensively, and that's usually what's going to be consistent. When you don't make shots, when you shoot 29%, you have a chance to beat the number 1 team in the country. That is encouraging. This team already is better defensively than I thought.
Big time. I mean, after 91 to Ole Miss in the exhibition, 100 to Bama on a night where Sears doesn't score, you're worried about, is this team going to be inside the top 100 on defense? Are they going to give up 80 on a given night to just a decent team? And that hasn't been the case. They've buckled down. Kylan is a sensational defender who deserves a lot of accolades. And to make Lanier work the way he did, and Lanier made some tough shots, some pull-up jumpers that went in the first half. Second half, he kind of took him out of it. And 17 points on 17 shots, like, you'll live with that, obviously. And in general, it is a team that's just – I like the game planning. I think that in the recent contests that we've seen, you can tell that Brad is really trying to pinpoint who are the weaker links for a team that they're facing and say, all right, we're going to try to just, Carter Gilmore comes in, shoots 16% from 3. Let's let Carter Gilmore take threes, and the math game will win out. And the same thing, they wanted Meshack to take a bunch of shots and so on and so forth. Now Milicic is a better shooter than he showed today, and if he makes some of those, then obviously this game isn't there in the balance at the very end. But I do like some of the number one. Kylan's going to be on your number one option, and then we're going to kind of help off of certain guys and then kind of encourage you to do what you don't want to do. So I think some of it is game planning scheme, and then they've just gotten a little tougher, and the effort's been there.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of that. So, Derek, we've covered Brad Underwood long enough. Illinois always seems like they're 7-3, 8-2 around this mark, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you go to Braggin Rights, you win that. You feel pretty decent about the non-conference because of how good Alabama is, how good this Tennessee team is. I mean, these are legit top 5, top 10 teams. But this is usually where the adjustment happens. You got time. You got a week between now and Braggin Rights, and you got a week there between games, and you got more time before you go out on the West Coast and play Oregon and Washington. What do you think that is? What do you think Underwood's tweak now is? I think it's more on offense. Like Zach Hamer probably took some arrows last year as the defensive coordinator. They're looking pretty good on that side of the ball. So I'm just wondering maybe it's not like an answer. This is usually that time of year where Illinois makes a tweak. Like last year, obviously they had to with the Terrence Shannon situation, but they went to booty ball with Marcus Damask. We've seen it before where they just make a change and all of a sudden they kind of figure out who they are. And Brad always says he's a visual learner. He has to see things first. So I'm wondering, 10 games in with a couple really close losses that kind of keep you from being 9-1 at this point and a top 10 team in the country, I'm wondering what that'll be for him.
It's a good question. I think it maybe is implementing a little bit more structure and offensively, set plays, especially some late game stuff that you can dial up where it feels like it gets tough to run. If you're going to bottle up a pick and roll or a pick and pop, a ball screen with KJ, you can kind of stagnate possessions for what Illinois wants to do. So if there's some of that implemented, I could see that being one of the tweaks. I don't know that he wants to, even though Ben continues to struggle. Is it going to be Merez at the 4 and Tommy at the 5? I still don't think that that's quite where he wants to go. So I think it's a great question. And yeah, it's crazy.
I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer for it. But it's something offensively for me.
Yes.
And I think you're probably right. I think listen, we can run what we run because KJ is so good at it. But at some points, you got to mix in some more sets, I would imagine. Get Trey some looks maybe to get to the rim. Or is there anybody on this team that you feel like when Kaspers maybe is on the bench for a couple minutes that you can go to and go some booty ball? Is it Kylan? Is it Trey? I don't think it's Tommy.
No. And there was a possession where the first half Trey did kind of turn a possession into like a booty ball ISO and ended up getting fouled. And maybe it's just to try to find another pivot or a pivot to the ball screen offense, something else in your arsenal that you can go to, hit a change up, whatnot. And I think late game should be, and I would imagine it's going to be thought about a lot. And maybe it is for a team that seems to maybe lose their composure a little bit. And the moment is still something they got to get used to. A little bit more structure, dictated actions could help them, I think.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a few questions before we get out of here. Leroy did correct himself, but I'm going to read the first one. $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Leroy. European players can't play defense. Ben non-existent. He knows now that Ben is not European. He's from Indiana. Ivisic, no rim protection. KJ can't step up in big moments on defense. Name the last European player to win Defensive Player of the Year in college. You did not bring KJ and Ivisic here to be phenomenal defenders. That's why you brought Kyle in here. You hope Trey can become a better defender. That last position was a struggle for I think both. Kaspers didn't stop the ball, and Ivisic didn't help. I know you don't want to give the putback up, Derek, but at some point you got to stop the ball, and it was like 1 second left. So just stop the ball. Kylan said he should have been on him, but saw another guy come open. Brad's probably right. He probably should have called timeout in that situation to get them set, and maybe you go into overtime and feel good without Chaz Lanier there and Zakai Ziegler there. So it's regrettable last possession, that's for sure. But Kaspers honestly has been better defensively than I thought, and Tomasov's not a great defender. He's been a great defensive rebounder, so I'll give him credit there.
No doubt. I agree with that for sure. Hey, Rudy Gobert's from France. That's Europe, right?
Oh yeah, there you go.
You know, I'm
That's European.
not to throw it back at Leroy here. I do agree with the point that those guys do have to be better, and some of it's built in. Like, make no mistake, the roster building was first prioritized skilled and shot making.
Yeah,
that was number one. I agree with you. I think KJ's been solid on defense for the most part. I think he competes. Like you said, I think defensive rebounding is something that he
Victor
presents.
Wembanyama is pretty good defensively too, by the way.
Yeah,
The French are pretty good.
Frenchmen. We gotta get.
I was going to say the French are pretty good defensively, but then I go back to World War II. But anyway, I digress.
That must be what
you didn't sign up for a world history class.
There you go.
Podcast.
Jeff Alexander gets to get to Paris to find the next great defender. Yeah, and Avicic, no, he should have. In hindsight, I'm sure they'll watch the film, understand situation, how much time is left, sell out, or make sure you're trying to contest that shot at the very end. And we didn't expect him to come in and be some kind of big-time shot blocker or anything like that. It was more about the offensive skill, and he does have 7-1 when he's hovering around the paint. But he's got some lateral limitation, and Ben needs to give you more, but defense is an understood limitation for him. It's just, even if you're not the most athletic, he could give you a little bit more toughness, a little more just all-out effort in terms of rebounding. He's too many times you see the opponent come away with a loose ball, second chance, and it's the guy that he's supposed to be blocking out, hovering, elevating over him as someone that's 6'9". So that's been frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. Fedigator, these young guys don't know what's coming with the Braggin Rights game. It's another animal, and Mizzou is on a high right now. I am concerned. I will say this, just Missouri obviously beat Kansas, right? And that's a huge win for them, and they are a decent team. They have not played a lot of people. They are 9-1. They have played one team in the top 100 of KenPom. They beat Cal at home. They beat Kansas at home. They've played one away game to this point. I mean, their other wins are Howard, Eastern Washington, Mississippi Valley State, Pacific, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and even Kansas was at home. So listen, they are capable of beating you, but the one win, I'm not like Illinois is more tested to this point, but it's a different game. And you have one guy who's played in this game, Derek. And this is kind of what the concern of the transfer portal era is some of these guys just don't know what this game is all about. And this game is huge for Missouri, obviously. And Missouri's won 4 of the last 6 against Illinois. This has not been a game that Underwood has played very well in, other than the 2 blowouts, one in 22 and one last year where Terrence Shannon just went off.
Yeah, I guess my counter would be, does Missouri know what they're in for in Braggin Rights either? Their roster is pretty fully turned over, other than Tamar Bates, who's back and is having a good year. The transfer from Indiana, who's now in his second go-around with the Tigers there. But Tony Perkins is there. Mark Mitchell transferred from Duke.
Tony Perkins knows what it's like to have a rivalry with Illinois. That's for sure.
He does know that. But, yeah, I mean, I think when you get into this, it's different than when Tillman's there and some of the familiar characters. And apologize for my cold here, wiping my nose, and my voice isn't
battling through. I'm trying to get us out here, but
isn't locked in.
Javon Pickett was like a all American in these Braggin Rights games. That meant a little bit more to him, I'm sure.
No doubt. But for whatever it is, yeah, it's just been a tricky game for Brad Underwood in Illinois, and it's one of those max effort games, toughness games, and if it ends up being close, late game execution will come again. But you got a good amount of time to work on yourself. You got a week, and I'd imagine no one's going to be hungry coming off of this when they feel like they probably gave away a huge opportunity.
SRQ, hit shots, and even an average rate, and a lot of this talk goes away. I agree with that, because this is a team that was not built to shoot 32.4% from 3. There's ways to get better shots, especially some of Will's shots. You've mentioned Ben rushed a few. But even the degree of difficulty with Kasparis, he's shooting 42% from 3 right now. And you got Kylan, who's a 35% shooter career-wise. He's 20.9. Trey's actually shooting well at 35, but Will, we talked about 1 of 17 the last 4 games. Thomas off 35, that's fine. But Ben, even at 35%, that's like 5 or 7% below what he normally does. So despite some of these early games where they played well, just make a couple against Northwestern, make a couple against Tennessee, obviously, and changes the game. Tennessee would say the same thing. They missed some open shots too, but Yeah, this team needs to make more threes. That's what they're built to do.
That's about it. That's the essence of it, right? I wrote my preview that I felt like you had to make 12 threes to win this game, and could have made about you could have made half or less and came away with it, which is the frustrating part, right? Like, this team is fully capable of making a few more and should. And Tennessee kind of laid it out there for you to have an average day shooting wise, and you would have won comfortably. And of course, you could flip the script and say some different things about the Tennessee side of it too. But you're in your home building, kind of expect to have a more likely comfortable shooting game or above par or whatever, however you want to put it. But it wasn't there today.
All right, last one. Def 1999 super chat. Thank you, Def. I will let nothing ruin my night of getting news of Luke Altmaier coming back. I still love this team. I think the players will come together. I saw somebody say, "Yeah, it's December, not March." It's kind of what I expected out of this team. It's just, man, yeah, chance to be the number one team in the country. That's what makes this one really difficult. That was a really cool moment at the first media timeout. You see the video, and I was standing up to go to the bathroom, Derek, and I really had to go. And then I was like, a kid from Mississippi. I was like, oh, no, Luke Altmaier is doing it right now. There's been a lot of optimism inside the program. I posted this on the board last week that Luke Altmaier would come back. But to have that moment, the video board, Luke's here, speaks in front of the fans. I got to see him a little bit later. But what a big moment for the Illinois football program, getting your star quarterback back. He's not going to hit the transfer portal. And, boy, he was sitting next to a wide receiver, by the way, a transfer wide receiver that was here. You can read about that at IlliniInquirer.com. Offensive lineman Miles McVay was here from Alabama. So that helps their pitch. But you feel like you're going to have a decent chance to be a good football team next year. Derek, with the schedule that came out, that lays out pretty well for Illinois, having 7 of the bottom 10 from the Big Ten on their schedule next year. So that was a pretty cool moment for the football program today.
Very cool. Love those videos. What better plays? I was really creative.
Remind you of Io?
Yeah, I mean, any of those type of videos do make me think back to the Iowa one and how special that was. But to do it in front of 16,000 plus, that was a great idea by whoever came up with that and executed it. So credit to him, credit to Barry Lunny for obviously that relationship and putting him in a good position. And they got the receivers. They'll have to do it again, obviously. But he had a really good year. Obviously, if you're doing reasons why this team has 9 wins, he's at the very top of it. And I think to get the news now and make it very public and go out into the portal is a huge, huge deal, as you know. And yeah, I love it. I think that's something that is big time. And the mullet's sticking around a little bit longer too, which is cool.
Yeah, the mullet, just wearing a white T-shirt. He'd been wearing it for the last week, and he's the big man on campus, making a bunch of money. And that's the thing; he could have hit the portal, made a lot of money from some SEC teams. Like, I heard some pretty big SEC teams that would have been interested in him. But for me, I knew how much he loved it here, Derek, and I knew how much he loved the opportunity Illinois gave him. And despite some ups and downs, right? I mean, the first season he was here, he had some downs as a starter and down to end the season with John Paddock replacing him. But Illinois stuck by him, built around him, and now he's having the success he always thought he would have as a big-time starter. And I just always thought if Illinois made it competitive, NIL-wise, money-wise, that he would want to come back. And clearly they are. Like, why would you let that guy walk out of your program and risk losing all the momentum that you have? And he's making the money that he's going to be worth, because he's worth a lot to Illinois football. So I thought the marriage made sense. And now he's the face of the franchise. He's the big man on campus for another year. And they get to build around him. That's their plan. Like, they want to invest a lot in this offense in the transfer portal. You'll see that in the offensive line and in the wide receiver room. Tight ends they want to add. So it's just cool because he can now – I mean, he's a fan favorite already, but now that he's coming back for another year, you think of, the legacy he will leave. I don't know if 9 wins are in the cards again next year, Derek, but it's possible. Like, you can do things like that, and at least you feel like you're going to continue your momentum with another bowl season, another year of contention in the Big Ten, and maybe if everything goes right and you make the right moves, you can be in contention for the college football playoff with a quarterback like that. But it all starts with a quarterback, and now you have one of the best in your program's history potentially after another year here.
Would have never thought 9 wins and college football playoff conversation would have been in the cards for this season. So obviously when you get really good quarterback play and you get receivers like that. We'll see where that ultimately goes, but that's a huge part of the recipe, and it's something that a lot of teams don't have. So he'll be tougher to get in the All Big Ten draft. I'll tell you that when we do that next summer.
Get the number 1 pick to get him, huh?
But I wasn't so sure after pulling the trigger on him, but I'm glad I did. And Atlanta fans should be really happy they get to see him for another year.
Yeah. Joey and I will talk about that probably a little bit next week in a pod. But Alec, last question. Any chance we're ranked Monday? Feels like a possibility. Beat the number 20 team in the country, and you took number 1 to the finish line. I think you got a chance to squeak in, Derek. But, man, if you would have beat Tennessee, I think you would have been like 12, 11, 10, somewhere like that.
Yeah. Ken Palm right now has you at 15. You were 12th in the net rankings going into today. If you drop,
I think they should be. I think they're a top 25 team.
I agree with that. Now, I don't know if the pollsters will have seen enough. I don't know how they think mostly anyways. Yeah. But I would have them just slightly in. If they're not, then I don't think it's some kind of just huge oversight. But beating a ranked team and then coming this close to number 1, I know you don't want moral victories, but I think they're a top 25 team. And if they're not, they'll have plenty of chances going forward to earn that. But the metrics say that they are, and that's what really matters.
Yep, and you mentioned it. We'll repeat it on this podcast. So number 12 in the net. That's the one that matters. Yeah. That's the one that matters more in the AP. All right, for Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Thank you to everybody who watched on our live YouTube channel. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell as well. If you're listening on our podcast, follow us, rate us, review us, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out all the latest on Illinois football, Illinois basketball, and all Illini athletics at IlliniInquirer.com. Everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.